comprehensive immigration reform from moving forward. We call on the Senate Minority Leader to stop blocking this process from moving forward so that we can get comprehensive immigration reform passed. And with that, I will be glad to go to your questions. Deb, go ahead.
Back when the NIE was released on July 18, 2003, you were asked that day when that had been actually declassified, and you said in that gaggle that it had been declassified that day. And if that's the case, then when the information was passed on to the reporter 10 days earlier, then it was still classified at that time.
Well, I think you're referring a couple of things. First of all, it was publicly released that day, so that's when the portion of the National Intelligence Estimate that we were making available to the public was released. The second part of your question is referring to an ongoing legal proceeding and referring to a filing in that legal proceeding. We have had a policy in place going back to the October time period of 2003 that we are not going to comment on an ongoing investigation or an ongoing legal proceeding. That policy remains unchanged. But let me point out a couple of facts. Step back from this legal proceeding. The President of the United States has the authority to declassify information. I also indicated to some reporters earlier today that the President would never authorize the disclosure of information that he felt could compromise our nation's security. Now, the National Intelligence Estimate was declassified. Portions of it were declassified. We made sure that we did not, that we continue to protect sensitive sources and methods within the National Intelligence Estimate. But let's go back to the time period that you're talking about, because I think it's important for the public to know or recall that time period. There was a lot of debate going on about the pre-war intelligence that was used in the lead up to the decision to go into Iraq and remove a brutal tyrant from his position of power. There were irresponsible and unfounded accusations being made against the administration, suggesting that we had manipulated or misused that intelligence. That was flat out false. The National Intelligence Estimate was a document that was provided to members of Congress. It is the collective judgment of the intelligence community. And because of the public debate that was going on and some of the wild accusations that were flying around at the time, we felt it was very much in the public interest that what information could be declassified be declassified, and that's exactly what we did.
I understand the reason why you thought it needed to be declassified because of the debate at the time. The question was, when was it declassified? And you were asked that day when it was, the question was, when was it actually declassified? And you said it was officially declassified today. If it had been officially declassified on July 18, 2003, then 10 days before, when the information was given out, it was still classified.
Again, you're going back to an assertion that is made in a filing related to an ongoing legal proceeding when you talk about the second part of your question. There's no way for me to separate that question and talk about this issue without discussing an ongoing legal proceeding, and I can't do that. We have a policy that's been established, and I'm obligated to adhere to that policy. Yes, but you can't separate that question from the legal proceeding.
Was it declassified
because of one of the assertions that was made in the filing. Well, you can go back and look at comments that were made at that time. That was when it was publicly released at the time. I haven't looked back at exactly what was said at that time.
It says right here on July 18th, when was it actually declassified? Mr. McClellan, answer. It was officially declassified today. Is that correct?
Again, you're asking me to get into the timing. I'm not backing away from anything that was said previously. That's when the document was released. So that's when it officially...
They say declassified.
I know, Jim. Let me tell you. That's when it was officially released. And so I think that's what I was referring to at the time. I'd have to go back and look at the specific comments, but I'm not changing anything that was said previously. So let me make that clear. Now, secondly, the question you're going to, again, relates to the timing of when certain information was declassified. Well, but there's no way you can separate that question out from the ongoing legal proceeding.
You are very careful with your words here. I think if you wanted to say released, you would have said released. You said declassified.
Okay. That's when the information was released publicly.
Did you not know?
But there was... Now, for the National Intelligence Estimate, Jim, it did go through a declassification process. You are correct. And information was carefully looked at by the intelligence community before the portions of the National Intelligence Estimate were made available to the public.
Declassified. If it's declassified on that day, it wasn't declassified before, and you're saying you're sticking to, you're not taking back anything you said before, and what you said that day is it was officially.
I'd be glad to take a look at exactly what I said, and I'll do that. I can't do that here in this room right now, but I'll be glad to take a look at it.
Then why are you saying you're not backing up?
Well, what I'm saying is that I think what I was referring to is the fact that that was when it was made available to the public. So all that information is officially declassified at that point.
Then why are you saying you won't back off anything you said before if, in fact, we have transcripts here where you say that's when it was officially declassified? You still saying that's when it was officially declassified?
That's when it was made available to the public. So it's officially declassified at that point. I think we're talking past each other a little bit. I'll have to go back and look at the specific transcript, and I'll be glad to do that, and we can talk about it further later.
Was it officially declassified?
Again, in terms of the timing of when information may have been declassified, that gets into a question relating to the legal proceeding that in a filing that was made by Mr. Fitzgerald earlier this week.
Referring to on July 18th, then, was that the official release or official declassification?
Well, that's what I'll have to check. I'll have to go back and look, but my sense is, and my recollection is, while we're sitting here talking about it, is I was referring to the fact that was when it was officially declassified for the public.
Scott,
Can I just one more here? In terms of releasing information and leaks, you know the President has been highly critical of people
Absolutely.
who leak. Not just classified material. He has said in the fall of 2003, I've constantly expressed my displeasure with leaks. Now, whether the argument from the administration is he declassified this, so it wasn't classified information, I know you're not going to get to the legal issues here, but he has criticized people who leak, not just classified information, and there were clearly leaks.
What was the context of those comments about leaking of classified information, I
He was
believe?
asked about leaking classified information,
Right.
but the President said, I've constantly expressed my displeasure with leaks.
The
Not
president,
just classified
the president
information.
believes the leaking of classified information
Particularly
is a
this.
very serious matter, and I think that's why it's important to draw a distinction here. Declassifying information and providing it to the public when it is in the public interest is one thing, but leaking classified information that could compromise our national security is something that is very serious, and there's a distinction. Now, there are Democrats out there that fail to recognize that distinction or refuse to recognize that distinction. They are simply engaging in crass politics. Let's make clear what the distinction is.
With leaks, not just classified leaks.
Scott, can I follow
Right.
on that for a second? Because in December of 2003, to follow on this, he says if there's a leak out of the administration, I want to know who it is. Now, is there a question, and we're not talking about legality here, while he's saying that, according to the court filing, which I know you can't get into the specifics of,
Right.
but as he's saying it, he certainly is aware who would have allowed the information to be disseminated. So at best, isn't the statement, if there's a leak out of the administration, I want to know who it is, at best, isn't that just inconsistent?
Absolutely
If
not. That's referring to the leaking of classified information.
Only the leaking of classified information.
I think
He
that's the
doesn't-
context of
so if
that,
it's-
what that
what about if
question
it's a
was
political-
responded to.
And if it's in political, if there's a political purpose to it, then it's fine?
If it's in the public interest, it's another matter. And the National Intelligence Estimate was declassified because it was in the public interest to provide portions of that National Intelligence Estimate to the American people. As I said, there were people that were out there making irresponsible accusations that intelligence was manipulated or that intelligence was misused. There's been no evidence to back that up whatsoever. And if you look at the National Intelligence Estimate, Jim, you weren't here at the time, but some others in this room were, it shows the collective judgment of the intelligence community. And then you go back and look at the bipartisan Rob Silberman Commission, and they said there's no evidence of political pressure on the intelligence analysts. You go back and look at the Butler report. The Butler report said that there was no evidence of deliberate distortion. You go back and look at the Senate Intelligence Committee report. They say they did not find any evidence that administration officials attempted to coerce, influence, or pressure analysts to change their judgments. So this was part of the debate that was going on at that time in the public. And so it was in the public interest that information be declassified.
I understand that. My only question is...
And this information, too, in another distinction, this was pre-war intelligence we're talking about. So it was historical context that was being provided, not information that could compromise our nation's security.